This is why I decided to buy Bitcoin even as it approaches 120K, which is at its all-time high. And I still decided to buy. I'm someone who's very risk adverse, likes to play things very safely when it comes to my investments. And I like to do things that's very predictable and pretty secure. And, with buying crypto, I understand that I'm taking on a little bit more risk, but that's risk I'm willing to take because of the potential for appreciation. And I'm only putting a small percentage of my investment portfolio in crypto in general. But I kind of view Bitcoin as like the S&P 500 of crypto. And of course, just in general, crypto isn't as safe and as secure as stocks or mutual funds or ETFs, especially ones that track the S&P 500. But like I said, I'm willing to dedicate a small portion of my portfolio towards something a little bit more risky, just because I'm young. I'm only 22 years old, and I can afford to comfortably lose that money in case everything goes wrong. But just to kind of give you a brief background of my experience with cryptocurrency, I invested about $1,200 in crypto. Maybe 5 years ago, I invested in similar stuff like Bitcoin, XRP, Solana, Ethereum, Cardano, all these cryptocurrencies that were pretty big at the time. And, at the time I was working as a lifeguard. I wasn't making much money at all. And I basically put a whole entire paycheck towards crypto, and I was too into it. I was checking it every 2 seconds. I was watching crypto YouTubers, and I was a very emotional investor at the time. So, at a certain point, I had a lot of my money tied up into it. And when it went down, I decided to sell it all. I took a loss. And in reality, looking back, if I never sold, that would be worth so much more money today, probably over $10,000 at least. But the point is, I put too much money into it, and I wasn't comfortable losing that money. And whenever it would even go down a little bit, it made me really, emotional and insecure, and I decided to sell. Now it's kind of my experience with crypto in the past, and that kind of gave me a negative impression on crypto going in the future. So I just decided to stay away from it. A lot of crypto kind of felt a little bit scammy, a little bit fishy. But, now at the age of 22, I already have a good investment portfolio. I decided to put at least 10% into crypto. And the cryptocurrencies I decided to invest in is Bitcoin, XRP, and Ethereum. And I put about $830 in maybe 2 weeks ago, and now my portfolio is sitting at just over $1,000. So just in the past 2 weeks, I'm already up about $200, which is pretty good, especially compared to the stock market. And I understand that obviously it's only been 2 weeks. I'm in it for the long term because I'm expecting Bitcoin to hit 200K in the future, and I'm willing to hold out until that point. And I'm not planning on selling anytime soon either, but I'm doing it as a long-term investment. I believe Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP are all very safe, relatively stable cryptocurrencies that are going to go up, especially because it's about to be that 4-year cycle. And a lot of government institutions are starting to support cryptocurrency. I know specifically XRP has a lot of government utility, or I think there's a lot of billionaires and stuff that like to use XRP and utilize it to do certain things. I'm not too involved in crypto. I haven't done too much research myself, but I've talked to some people who I know who are super into that stuff, and they kind of recommended me to just do Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP, especially because I want to play it safe and secure. Those are the three that I decided to invest in. And even though Bitcoin was, close to 120K at the time, I still decided to invest in Bitcoin because I believe that it's going to hit 200K in the future. And in my opinion, it kind of resembles the S&P 500 of the kind of cryptocurrency market. Everything follows Bitcoin. If Bitcoin goes up a bunch, all the altcoins and all the other stable coins are going to follow in some capacity. So that's why I decided to buy a little bit of cryptocurrency. And for the time being, I'm not going to invest anymore. But even if you were someone who's risk adverse like me and has all your money tied up in the S&P 500, I would still recommend putting a very small percentage in crypto. Maybe it's 5 to 10% of your whole investment portfolio, but just having a little bit in there allows you to have some diversity and also see some potential sharp appreciation in times like this.